What's up, guys? Welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar, episode 41. This week, I have Jen Hazzard. All right. You guys may not have heard of her. She is the all-time world record deadlift holder in the 132 class, ranked 19th all-time in all weight classes for females, number 4 all-time in 132, a very legendary class. She's a mom. She's a chemistry teacher, right? She made some time before her classes today to hop on and tell us her story. Thanks for hopping on, Jen, and it's nice to meet you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you too.
So super excited to hear how and where you got into powerlifting, because according to Open Powerlifting, you didn't start competing till you were 30, right? So that was in 2015. Before that, what the hell is Jen doing? Take me through your history, whether it was high school, college, becoming a chemistry teacher, finding powerlifting. Let's start from the beginning.
So I was not an athletic kid at all. I participated in soccer a little bit, but never sports were not my thing. I actually was like a big band nerd. I played the trumpet. I was president of the band. When I went to college, I didn't want to gain the freshman 15 or whatever. And would go to the gym a little bit, but I got into running. And so I started like just a little bit on the treadmill. I signed up for a 5K race, maybe like a year after like my sophomore year of college, and really loved that. And I ran for a really long time. I did 9 full marathons. I couldn't even tell you how many half marathons, but I used to just run. I was just the girl that would be running everywhere. There was a point I would do like 50 to 100 miles a week running. And it got to the point, like after I had my son, actually, when I had my son, I would get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, give him his like night feed or whatever. Then I'd get dressed. I'd go out and run in the dark. And I live in upstate New York. So like in the winter, it's cold. I don't even know how I did it. But I would run early in the morning, get him ready. I'd go to work, and it just started to get like kind of lonely, the running, because not a lot of people could do that with me. And even in the afternoon when I would run, try to get friends to go or something, they'd be like, I can't run. I don't want to run as far as you run or whatever. So one day at the gym, I was on the treadmill, and a friend of mine, like an acquaintance, said, why don't you come off the treadmill and try this thing back here? And it was a deadlift bar, and he had like, I think it was loaded with like 95 pounds. Like it had like 225-pound bumpers on it. And he's like, pick that up. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he showed me like the difference. He actually had me do this thing where he put a quarter on the ground and had me pick it up. And by the way that I picked it up, determined if I would be conventional or sumo, which I had no idea what that meant. But I picked it up, and apparently I was conventional. So he's like, okay, now pick this up, showed me, picked it up. So he would keep putting weight on. And at this time, I probably weighed about 105 pounds soaking wet. And that very first day, I deadlifted 215. And he was like, you need to do this because that's double your body weight and you've never even done it before. So I actually didn't have social media at the time. I had Facebook, but like powerlifting isn't really that big on Facebook. It's more like Instagram. I had no idea who all anybody was. I didn't know any. I signed up for my first powerlifting meet, which was a push-pull on a piece of paper that I mailed in. So like I was just going to try this new thing. I knew nothing about it. And I actually feel
that was actually most powerlifting meets, also the mailing in of things. I remember seeing that all the time around that same time.
Yeah.
The
And
technology had already came so far, but powerlifting was still very kind of niche. And yeah,
yes.
I remember seeing that too down here.
Yeah, and it was like it was like the land of like misfit toys, this sport. It was like a lot of no powerlifters are completely normal. I mean, the things that we do to participate in this activity is a little kooky, but I mean, my best friends that I consider my family are powerlifters, so I obviously love weirdos, right? But back then it was like it wasn't as what's the word, polished. Like powerlifting has like polished side, and there's a lot of like beautiful people that powerlift. It's not just like big hairy men that like bash their head on the squat bar and they do their lifts like bleeding down the face anymore, like it was at certain points in time, right? Um,
Only Andrew House is keeping that alive.
yeah. So, and then now I know who that is because now I have social media. So I like learned all who people were and got really into the history of it. And I just kept it up. I kept, working on my lifts. I did actually have, I have a coach now. But historically through my whole career, I had never had a coach except I had a brief point in time where I had a coach before my first time I went to the Arnold when I was still in the 114 class. But I've always just really been into reading, watching videos, learning things myself to get where I have been up until recently. I started working with a coach in I think late August of this year to get ready for your meet. So that's it. That's how I got into it. I did try to run still when I first got into powerlifting, but I learned really quickly that it's too difficult to do. But I know some people can, but for me, I couldn't be good
So
at
you don't hear of very many high level power lifters who came primarily from strictly a running background. You know, Steffi Cohen, she did a lot of marathons and a lot of running. She went from soccer to running, then CrossFit, then powerlifting, but still soccer first as a base. But running and finding that later in life, it's funny because it's such polar opposite. But from what I do know from runners is running is very addictive. And the runners that I do know that I have met, they're like they'll die if they can't run, right? No
Yeah,
matter the
I
weather, no
can't.
matter anything.
If you told me back then, like there's going to be a point in time where you're just going to lift weights, you're not going to run anymore, I would have thought that you were nuts. You know what I mean? And I did love it, but the lonely, like powerlifting is so much more social, right? Like I have a team that like we train in my buddy's garage 3 nights a week. We travel together, like even at the commercial gym where I do my accessories, like I love going there and seeing everybody, and that it's better for me mentally to do that.
And I find so many people find that for the gym, powerlifting gym, whatever is it also can be a social outlet when you have kids, when you have a career, when you have whatever it is. And I know they have like run clubs, this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, there's not much socializing you can do when you're running for an hour and a half straight. You're not going to stop and have a chat and then
Right.
keep going, right?
Exactly. And they do, these people have become like family to me. Like our kids, go play, like you bring them to the gym and they all like play outside on the playground while we're in the gym, and we could go to each other's birthday parties and things like that. So it's nice.
So take me through that gym that you were training at. Was it a commercial style gym and you just were fortunate enough that there happened to be people who were powerlifters and a deadlift bar there?
It wasn't a deadlift bar. It was like and it's funny because the commercial gym that I train at now bought all the equipment from that initial gym is not open anymore, but the gym I'm at now, they bought all their equipment and they still have the same crappy stiff bars with no knurling on them that I learned on. So it's always a treat to be able to pull on an actual deadlift bar. Like the gym that I train at, my buddy's garage, we have a kabuki bar that we bring to like our meets, and that I'll take like my openers on, like when I'm getting ready to compete. And then we have like another deadlift bar. So it's nice to actually have a place with powerlifting equipment. But yeah, it was just happened to be this acquaintance of mine who had been in powerlifting for probably a decade himself. He was just like, why don't you come off that stupid treadmill and pick this up? And I just trained on like, I got my start on like pretty crappy equipment. And even still, like just at my friend's house, we have like a Texas squat bar. We've got a bench bar that's like an F8 bar. We have the kabuki bar, but it's just a garage. It used to be a chicken coop, I think.
Oh,
And now it's got a monolift in it that we're afraid that if you sneeze on it, it might break. So it needs a little TLC, but it's really just whatever I have access to is what I use. There's not a gym like yours around here.
right.
I wish there were. The closest one is in Albany, the capital, which is like probably 45 minutes away from me. So
Well, it's funny because you'd think being Miami, being one of the biggest cities, that there'd be tons and tons of powerlifting, tons and tons of competition. There's not. When I started my powerlifting club when I was working at a CrossFit gym in 2014, and I was in the corner of a super rusty, crappy, hot swamp CrossFit gym with just rusted bars, those adjustable benches were what we were benching on, and rusty 45-pound plates. And there was powerlifting is, big in Florida, but in 2014, 2015, it was as big as what it was. And then by 2017, powerlifting continuing growing. The CrossFit gym I was at didn't want to invest anything in the powerlifting club. Nothing was changing. It was the same stuff, but we trained on that for years and years and years. And I took teams. There's one year I've talked about on the podcast here with some of the guys from Florida who remember that. Back in 2016, I took a team of like 32 people to a local meet, like a bunch of CrossFitters, different people and stuff. And it wasn't until 2017 when I started working for Hybrid Performance Method that like the first powerlifting gym opened in Miami. And besides that gym that was around for years, then I was the second powerlifting gym in Miami. It's so weird because, a lot of LA, main areas in New York and stuff, it's super, super popular, but it's not very popular here. But it gives me a good kind of stranglehold on the market. But regardless, those times, 2015, 2016, and then even a lot of people now in more rural areas, younger kids nowadays are so damn spoiled, with all their fancy shit.
I know.
The kids in my gym are divas, and it's funny because I still have some of my same athletes from 8, 9, 10 years ago that I trained at that first CrossFit gym, and they know how to count the blessings. They know how to be, oh, okay, the older squat bar is available. I'll be okay. It's not the brand new one Alex just bought 36 hours ago, but I like being able to spoil my people, but it's different. It's a different generation now.
We have at my friend's house in the garage gym, we have a couple of guys that do like welding. And so we have like the craziest makeshift like shit in there. Like we have like a belt squat machine.
Of course.
Right, which I would love to have an actual one. Well, we have like this apparatus that like clips onto the power rack with a pin, and you have to like put pieces of wood under it to like hold it up and like straddle it and then kick the wood out, and like that's the kind of stuff that we train on in the garage gym. And then I look at like, of course, like Haley Hill.
Yeah, of course.
Right. I love her. She's so awesome. In her gym, I watch her like the equipment come in that she has delivered like in her stories, and I'm like salivating because like I want access to that thing. Like it's cool because it makes it more appealing, I think, to like this next generation, and they have like the access to all this really cool equipment. But I also kind of think it's cool, like where you got your start on like rusty, not nice equipment. Like you can kind of like it both can work. You can do this sport no matter what equipment you have access to, which is part of why it's cool, I think.
Well, it also, that comes down to the mindset of it. Are you going to let yourself be so distracted and so bothered if everything is not perfectly aligned, the stars exactly how you want them, so that on competition day, it's identical and this, that, and the other? Or on the philosophy that we used to have, which is like you probably now still have, and we don't hear about because of how popular powerlifting is and how much there's so much accessibility. It's a rare occurrence still for someone to be still training on those same, type of stuff. But what it used to be back in the day, where it's like, okay, well, I'm training on this piece of shit bench and these bars. When I go to fucking competition, holy fuck, I'm adding 150 pounds to my bench.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's how you have to look at it. Especially with the bench, because the commercial gym that I'm at, the benches, dude, like there's one Thompson fat pad bench there, which would be like the decent bench, but it's old. So it's like, I don't know, there must be like one really big guy that's like cockeyed on there, because like the one side of it like sags, and you're like I'm little, so I like roll off it. I'm like trying to, like I have to like kayak it up because I'm like, this side is like falling. It's ridiculous. Did you compete in CrossFit?
I did one CrossFit competition 3 weeks before my first powerlifting competition, which was in 2015 or early 2016.
Can you do a muscle up?
The funny thing is I learned how to do muscle ups a couple years after that when I was fully just into powerlifting. I
I
haven't.
would.
I last time I tried one, I think it was like 3 years ago, and I still had it. I could still do it.
Can you realize that is so impressive to me because I can do a million pull-ups. I can do dips for days, but I'm not coordinated. Back to remember I told you I'm not athletic. It's a lot of it is coordination.
Oh,
I
I can
can't
hardly walk straight.
I
Okay.
can't
I
bring the
am
two together.
so
Like
I
it's
was good at I'm good at upper body based stuff. And since I taught CrossFit for years, I taught muscle ups for a very long time before then I could even do them myself. It was funny because one day I was dating this chick who was like super into CrossFit. She's like, "Oh, you have?" That? I was like, "Oh fuck, I can't. I don't know how to do them." And she taught me how to do them on the rings. I did them on the rings first
yeah.
before I did them on a bar. Then I did them on a bar. But it's very technical, very technical. But anything lower body related technical, like I said, I could hardly friggin' walk straight. I got Bambi legs. I'm a bench guy. I'm an upper body guy. That's it.
Yeah, I tried to learn. I had a brief there was like about a year that I would go to like a CrossFit gym just for something different. In the early days, I could never do it now. Because I can't do both. I have to do powerlifting and I try to like make sure I get my steps in. That's like my cardio. I walk like I got a Fitbit. I'm like, oh my God, I walk a lot, like 20,000 to 30,000 steps a day. I like never stop moving.
That is insane.
I know, so I teach, but then I'm also, for example, an adjunct professor, and like in my lecture hall, like the whole time I teach, I'm like walk up and down the stairs. I like never stop moving. I said to myself one day, I'm like, I wonder if this is like distracting to the people that I'm teaching that I'm like walking around the whole time. But I wanted to always do a muscle up, and I had this other goal. I wanted to be able to walk on my hands. Can you do that?
That no, I can do a handstand up against a wall and stuff. My wife, when I met my wife at the gym that I was working at, she had done CrossFit and then had a surgery. Coming back from her surgery, started powerlifting, and then that's how our love story blossomed. And she competed with me in powerlifting, and we competed on and off until 2018, 2019. That was the last time I think both her and I competed. Um, but then she's now back to her CrossFit roots for the last like 3 years. Like she's the only crazy motherfucker in my mainly powerlifting gym who is doing handstand walks across the gym, across the turf. Literally like 3 months postpartum, she was back to doing that, snatching, overhead squatting, all that crazy shit.
That's so impressive. That was a goal of mine. I'm the same as you, though. I can do it like against a wall. It's the coordination. I just can't.
Well, I'll tell you this, it's powerlifting is so fucking easy in the grand scheme of things. So
It's
like I
true.
said, I started that powerlifting club in pretty much 2014 because I started powerlifting myself because I was like, holy fuck, I'm extremely unathletic. I started working out in 2012 as a means to get sober when I was 19. And all that CrossFit shit, I was like, I can't fucking do this. I was a string bean, couldn't lift anything. I was like, I need to get big. I need to put on some size. Started powerlifting, started the powerlifting club to offer something different in the gym. But through all those years with my club, I still was coaching CrossFit. And we actually had a very high level CrossFit team that went to the CrossFit Games in 2016. And so I was able to go to the CrossFit Games as an assistant coach because I wrote all their strength work. We had all of our different coaches had different elements. I wrote the powerlifting. We had a different coach writing the weightlifting. We had a different coach writing the gymnastics. And the amount of work that CrossFitters do,
Oh,
I've
it's
talked about
crazy.
this a couple times in the podcast, but these kids, people don't understand. If
Oh,
you even if you've done CrossFit yourself, like until you see like the actual elite level CrossFitters, it's insane.
it's so impressive. It's crazy impressive. I like look at the women that do it and just like their like the meat that's on their back and their shoulders, like their traps from doing all of that overhead movement and all that pulling up movement. It's like they are the peak of athleticism. Super impressive. They're
Their
specimens.
physiques, especially the women in the CrossFit side of things. The men, they have to stay a little bit smaller, a little shorter stature. Like you don't really look at them and be like, oh, that guy can step on a bodybuilding stage and go pro. But you look at the women and you're like, holy shit, they have more muscle mass on them than IFBB pro women for the most
Oh
part.
yeah, it's insane, and you wouldn't think that they would be able to retain that kind of size with like all of the like cardiovascular activity that they have to do. That's what ended up getting me, was like when I was doing CrossFit briefly, I can't separate the power lifter in me from being a CrossFitter, because you know how the workouts are very often based on like a percentage. Like I remember this one workout I had to do, we were deadlifting. So we would deadlift and then we would have to do pull-ups and then kettlebell swings. And it was like this little circuit. We had to do 10 rounds. And the percentages for the deadlift were like, it was like ranging in from 80% to 103% was like the last round. And when like people that take a CrossFit class, let's say that there's another 130-pound female, her 80% might be 220, right? But for her body, what could she potentially do? Like, what's the most that a 130-pound body can withstand? You know, at that point in time, I was like my 80% was like, I think 400. So I was like dead by round 5, and everybody else was able to still do it, but I couldn't not do my actual 85%. Like I refused to like take the power lifter in me and like shut her up for a second and just try to go lighter on the CrossFit. Like that's my problem. Like I have to go 110%, or like I don't want to do it. And then I completed that workout. I about died. And then we had to run at the end. And like I've heard about people experiencing like CNS fatigue, you know, that doesn't really happen to me, you know, very often. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. But after that workout, like the next day, I had trouble like putting sentences together. Like I definitely had something going on after that workout. So I'm just like too much of a power lifter at this point to be able to be a successful CrossFitter, if that makes sense. But I respect the hell out of it. And I wish that maybe that's what I'll do after, you know, I'm done powerlifting.
I was about to say, don't put that card off the table, because you have like the frame that you would be such a good CrossFitter. The height, the width, like you'd be able to move really well in gymnastics and all that, but it's a matter of learning those skills. And some people, it's like, because we had so many people coming in, you know, and 99% of people were the general population, people taking are just standard CrossFit classes. But then we also had a competitors class and a competitors program, which 90% of CrossFit gyms don't have, you know, because you're the tiny percent of the people who are going to go to a regionals or go to a games or whatever it is. Most gyms aren't going to market to those people anyway, because it's just such a small amount of people. They're not going to have that offering. So like in order for you to actually train like a CrossFitter to try to compete at a high level and go to the CrossFit Games, you're not going and just stepping into your 1 hour class and that's your whole workout for the day. The way that our competitive CrossFitters workouts are structured, a lot of them were at the gym 4 to 5 hours a day. They'd have a morning session, which would be their strength work, essentially almost like a full powerlifting workout. What an entire powerlifter would do, they would do that, and that was just only 1/4 or 1/5 of their workout. Then they do gymnastic skill work. Then they do some accessories, and they'd rest. They'd have a meal. Then they'd come back, and then they would do more gymnastics works and Olympic weightlifting work. Then with like one small cardio workout. Then later on again in the afternoon, then they had their longer CrossFit workout plus accessories. It's insane. If you see it on paper,
is that? How many days a week?
Usually at least 5, and they'd have like a 6th, like just like longer CrossFit day, active rest day, longer circuits. It was, if you look at it on paper, it's absolute insanity. Like what the best of the best CrossFitters have to do. And it's like, if you look at a lot of professional athletes, look at a football player, look at this and the other, what they have to do is fucking grueling like that also, you know? Yep. Powerlifting, we have it pretty fucking easy. We have it pretty fucking easy. But CrossFit it's something, it was a world that I was so dove into, so involved with, and it was really cool to be able to do it side by side along with powerlifting and grow my powerlifting club. But I always thought, and I always knew, and I've talked about this a lot on this podcast, that when that was my, you know, my career working at that gym for all those years, you know, building my club. I was doing personal training there also. And I'm like, man, how much longevity and how much how long will this be relevant enough that I can continue making a decent living teaching these general population people and all these people who come in for this word CrossFit? And I always fucking knew there was like a big expiration tag on it. Because if you compare it now to what it was in 2017, 2018, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Do you think that those people have like made the shift like over into powerlifting, or is there some other athletic thing that
A
they're
large majority, because the main market of the people who were paying the price tag of $150 to $200 a month to go to CrossFit and take this group class were just normal people who wanted to come after work and go do a workout that kept them in general shape, you know?
yeah.
Now they have so many fucking other options. They have these Orange Theories, they have these F45s, they have all these different similar style things that
Yep.
it's so saturated. They don't hear the word CrossFit anymore. They hear whatever the new fad is of these workout stations and these quick, you're in and out 45 minutes, you go home and you make dinner for your kids. That was the majority market of people for CrossFit. Now, powerlifting, it's so easy to access. Anyone can do it. The amount of young people that we have coming up, the majority of my members, young 17, 18-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, it's just became more and more of a common word for people to hear. And it's
Oh yeah,
so easy
totally.
for them to start doing. So fucking easy. It's like it's not going anywhere.
I agree. I agree. And I actually think it's kind of exciting how many young people are into it. I do wish that they would like so many of them jump into it like too they're like gung ho about trying to max out. Like they don't have coaches, or they have a coach that maybe has been powerlifting for a year, and so they're doing things that are like kind of dangerous, if for lack of a better word. Like they're doing it's like too much too soon. Like
Yep.
they want to be John Hack like now.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not like taking the time to, build that foundation. They're going hard right out of the gate. That's not to say that they couldn't compete. I mean, I did my first competition. I had been lifting for 2 months. Like I just wanted to jump in and try it. I just wish that they would take the time to get that education piece in there, whether it's from a personal trainer or having a coach that actually knows their stuff or whatever. But because I see a lot of oh my God, did you see that video that was going around the other day of that kid dumping the squat? It was like a state record. It was this he's just a little guy.
Okay.
He had to have been like maybe a 148 or a 132, but he had like 680 something on his back. He like walks out with it. He doesn't even try to take it. It just dumps and he falls forward and like passes out. Did you see that?
I did not.
I'll
No.
have to find it and send it to you. But like that, like I see like shit like that at the commercial gym. Like
Oh yeah.
it like, take
And another my other gripe with the younger kids, like I'd say this, I love it because it gives me so much job certainty. It gives my
yeah, yeah.
business so much business. Because beyond just the Ghost Clash, I run, 6 other just regular local USAPL meets because all the young kids, they want to do the USAPL.
Yep.
My gripe with a lot of those kids, and I've talked about this here before, and I say this to them, is too many of them look like fucking Gumby, because they just dive, like you said, dive so head first into powerlifting, want to be like, whoever the hell it is, and squat, bench, deadlift till they fucking puke, and it's half the members at my gym. I never see any of them because my gym is split into 2 sides. Powerlifting paradise, right? 6
Yep.
combos, 2 monos, like beautiful powerlifting side. And then my bodybuilding side, where I've hand selected. I have 38 different machines, all old, most of them old school, discontinued, the best bodybuilding machines ever made. And those kids never touch them, and they hardly have a lick of muscle mass on them. And that's where I think there's also a big disconnect with, with some of those people and also creating longevity long term on their body. But I mean, all we could do is hope and try to educate, you know?
Oh, and then another thing that they're always, we just, my team just threw a powerlifting meet a couple weekends ago. I was judging that day. Another thing that a lot of the young kids, I hate to say kids, but young adults, whatever, they're always cutting.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, why are you cutting for what? Are you trying to break a record? Are you trying to move your way up like the ranking? Like, what are you cutting for? This is your first meet. Like, don't cut, eat and lift. That's it. Like right
That's
now,
it.
just have fun.
Yeah. That's always been my philosophy. All my athletes listening, anyone who knows, I've never allowed any of my athletes to cut weight, any of them, unless they are an elite level lifter doing it for a
Exactly.
specific purpose. But there's, five other coaches who are my friends in my gym. Anyone can coach. You can have your athletes do whatever you want. And all those kids in USAPL, 2 hour weigh-ins, these kids literally like not even close to qualifying for Raw Nationals because it's not that easy to qualify for Raw Nationals in USAPL and all of them cutting and showing up to my gym looking like crap. And I tend to troll them all, but I mean, here we are.
What do you think of the 2 hour weigh-in?
I think I like it. I see a lot. I've thought about for years running a pro level meet with a 2 hour weigh-in, and lately I've been seeing a ton more people making posts about it and talking about it and talking about the possibility of it. Um, and I'd like to see it on the untested side because I
I
do
actually,
agree.
I kind of like it too. I like the idea. I've never done it, obviously, but I kind of like it.
There's the only meets that have ever done it on the untested side of things have all been overseas.
Mhm.
Like Pro Raw over in Australia, one of their competitions every year is done with a 2 hour weigh-in, but with all specialty bars. And then you have the ABS Pro in Ireland, which is 2 hour weigh-in with all stiff bar. And historically, not a lot of Americans or not a lot of the high level lifters have gone over and ever done any of those, but it would be interesting to see how things would change. And it's just why it more and more, I think, becomes a conversation is because if you look at powerlifting when we started, and we looked at all the high level people, almost all the people, if you thought of who's at the top of powerlifting, they were an untested lifter. If you thought about who's at the top of any weight class ranking, they were an untested lifter. If you looked at who was an all-time world record holder, they were an untested lifter. So it was done in a 24-hour weigh-in.
Yep.
Now, the tested lifters, the USAPL, the IPF, they are, first of all, the ones that all these new young kids are looking up to, right, and staring at. And they are exceeding what historically all these legends have done in a 24-hour weigh-in, the deadlift bar untested.
Yep.
And now they're all doing this with 2 hour weigh-ins, et cetera. So now it starts becoming more and more of a conversation because people are like, look, all these people are overtaking you or they're neck and neck with you, whoever it is in weight classes and rankings and all-time world records. So why don't we see these other guys let you be, an untested lifter, but let's see how you perform in that same thing. So it'd be cool. I have a feeling in the next year, whether I do it myself or whether someone else does, I think we'll see a pro level meet with a 2 hour weigh-in and see how people respond to it.
I like it, but I'm also a lifter that like I live right around my weight class. Like I walk around somewhere between like 129 and like 135. You know what I mean? Like I think like Brittany Bowles, I think
Yeah,
is
of course. Yeah. She's competed the last two ghost
she's
clashes.
she's amazing. And she walks around with she is just a muscle.
Yeah, she's a ball of
And
muscle.
it's
She is.
just it's so impressive. She's so impressive to me. And the fact that she cuts from like 150.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
weight cut is the most impressive weight cut I've ever seen anybody do ever. And I'm sure it's difficult for her. She doesn't let on, like she just handles it like a fucking boss and rocks the house. But like I could never. If I weighed 150 pounds, I would be a 148. I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't do it. She's a better woman than I am. I couldn't. I gotta live near my weight class.
It will be interesting to see how and when that day comes about. But really quick, I want to jump back in really quick and jump along the chronological history of you competing in powerlifting. All right. So your first competition was in 2015. You started competing pretty frequently, right? On a local level. You said you were a 114, right?
Yep.
Lifter to start out with. So once you started, like you said, you signed up for that first push-pull competition. You dove headfirst in, all into powerlifting, not worrying about running, not worrying about anything else. Talk to me about like those first 2, 3 years of powerlifting, getting stronger. And at what point did you start rising to an elite level and you thought, and all-time world records, became on your mind?
So, I kept doing it just because I just liked it. I just thought it was fun. I like being at a powerlifting meet. Like I have some friends that they like they like powerlifting, they like competing, but they're like, oh, gotta go. The meets, they take so long. But and do they take a little bit long sometimes? Sure, but like I like that. I love talking to people between my attempts. I like watching other people. I like the energy. I just love the environment. So for me, I stayed with it just because I enjoyed it, and I like working in the gym. I like working out. I like learning about it. I liked seeing my body change. I liked that my relationship with eating changed, because I told you when I started running, it was to like, I was running away from being fat. Like that's why I ran, to not gain weight. And I probably had an unhealthy relationship with food. Like I was the kind of person that if I didn't run that day, I would be like, oh, I can't eat as much today because I didn't run, And like, that's a terrible way to think. Right. So like now I eat to perform. I mean, I love eating. I eat more than I did back when I was a runner, and I get to see what it does for me. I started thinking that I remember, I'll never forget, I learned what an all-time world record was. I would train on Mondays. I would drive all the way to Syracuse on Mondays, and I would train with at Blood Iron Barbell with Rita West, who is an all-time world record holding equipped lifter. And that's a powerlifting gym, but it's in Syracuse. So you got to I had to travel to get there. And there were a couple other girls in her gym, Allison Hine, Becky Parati. Like I would get to train with them. They're good, great powerlifters too. And it was cool to just be, this is before I was with the team that I'm with now. I was kind of like between, I didn't want to be at the commercial gym anymore. Like I wanted to be on better equipment, but there really wasn't anywhere to do it. So, she invited me to come out there with them, and I would do that on Mondays. And I remember learning what somebody mentioned an all-time world record. And I was like, what is that? I didn't even know what that was, because I knew what world records were. Like there was like world records within different federations. So like I knew what those were. And I maybe even I think I had one. I think I had an all-time world record, or I think I had like an IPA world record or something like that. But I didn't know the difference between that and an all-time. I don't know if open powerlifting was a thing then. It might have been, but I didn't know what it was. And when I heard what an all-time world record was, I'm like, I want one of those. I want an all-time world record in the deadlift. I'm going to have one. And people were like, you're crazy. You're not going to have an all-time world record. And I was like, bet. Like I will have an all-time world record, and I'm going to work really hard to get one. And when I competed at a meet, my last meet in 123 class, I squatted, I think 385, benched like around 185 or 190, and I pulled 440 at 123. And I was like, all right, I think this is it. Like I'm going to get serious about this. I'm taking that record for sure. So I just set benchmarks. I was going to pull 500. And then I'll never forget, I was supposed to compete. The world record was 501. I pulled 500 at a meet. And actually this was the craziest thing. I had blown out my adductor tendon in 2020. I went skiing, which I have no business doing, but that's all there is to do here in the winter. I went skiing, I hurt myself. And then I was, November 2020, I was squatting, and my groin tendon came off my pelvis in the hole. Yeah, it was not good. I had to have surgery. They did a button procedure, right? So they drilled a hole in my pelvis, yanked the tendon through. That was November 27th, 2020. March 2021, I competed, and that's where I pulled my first 500 at that meet. So I bust my ass through PT, all those 4 months. I worked so hard, kept working my back. Even when my bench did go up a lot in that period of time, because I did a lot of Larson pressing, right? God was like, take this injury because your bench sucks and you need to fix it. But I was going to compete in June to pull I was going to pull 505. I'm like, I can definitely take that world record. And then it got bumped up to like 518 out of nowhere. And I'm like, well, this sucks. So I took 520. I don't know how many times I took 520. I would do meets just so I like squat, not that heavy, bench, not that heavy, and try to pull 520. And I miss it. And then finally last December, I got the 525 and I did it. And that's what I set out to do. I got serious after that last 123 meet. And I'm like, I'm going to get an all-time record. I want one of those. I want one. And I worked hard and it happened.
Then you went and broke it again shortly after that.
Yep, by 5 pounds. And I regret not taking my squats that day were moving really well, which is strange for me because I'm a terrible squatter, especially after that injury. I had a ton of atrophy in my leg from it, so my quads are like different size. I definitely don't have a future in bodybuilding because I'm asymmetrical as hell. Like everything, like it's a problem. But I was having a really good day that day squatting, and I kind of wish I squatted a little bit more, but it all worked out because I got to take the deadlift for another a good ride that day. So.
And that was your best performance at that meet. You broke into the 600 dots. Not only did you break into it, you dove into it, right, with a 623 dots. That video, I think, it's funny because you had already broken the all-time world record. You had broken it on calibrated plates, but that video went super viral. I remember even I commented on it. It was nothing to discredit you, but it was just, to me, it was so shocking because powerlifting and federations have grown so much. But then, of course, like you said, you're kind of middle of nowhere, New York, whatever it is. Some places, and I've talked about this with other guests as far as countries, but it's not just countries. It's also regions and areas that are like behind the times in certain things, you know?
Yeah,
and for the federation to still be using these big 100-pound metal plates, everyone was like, wait, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah, I think like I had never really thought about something like that before. Like it never really crossed my mind because going back to the first thing that you said in here, like, I mean, I work, like I'm a high school teacher. We actually have a finals week this week. We have a middle of the year finals week. So I don't teach classes today. I just have to proctor exams and grade things. So this is fine for today, but like I'm a full-time science teacher. Chemistry. I adjunct at 2 colleges. Actually, my spring semester starts tonight. I have class at 4 p.m. at a college. I do other things, like I work for the teacher center, so I teach teachers. Like I work a lot. I actually even clean a house, which a lot of people don't know that. And then I have a son, and I like to make sure that I spend a ton of time with him, take him to do all kinds of things. And like I'm a super, super involved parent. I mean, he takes piano lessons. He goes to ski school. He plays soccer. He's a really good soccer player. I'm like, phew, he did not get,
he got some good genes.
Yes. Yeah. He's way more coordinated than I am.
Yes.
So like for me to be able to, cause like after that video, a lot of the thing was like, oh, well, she only does backyard meets. And I had never thought, it wasn't like I was signing up for meets because I felt like I had an advantage,
right?
Because they were backyard. I just did what was accessible to me. Like, is it a weekend that I don't, because my son goes with his dad one weekend a month, and then there's like a half weekend a month that he goes. So like, especially when he was littler, now I'll bring him to a meet because he's 10, he's gonna be 10 next week. So he can come to a meet, and like I'll have him bring some stuff, and he'll play and have snacks. And now he watches and cheers, and but when he was littler, like what was I going to do? No offense to your competition. It's wonderful. I can't wait to come. But like, I wasn't going to fly my 6-year-old down to Miami with me and make him sit or risk him running around. Do you know what I mean? Like I did what was possible for me to do. I've never avoided. It's not like, oh, I can't do, like the hybrid or the ghost clash because I'm afraid to do it. It was always like, logistics. What can I do with the time that I have? What can I afford? I mean, at the end of the day, I work multiple jobs, but I work multiple jobs because not one of them pays what I would like it to. You know what I mean? So like I competed last weekend. I had a pretty good meet. I did get a little hurt, but I think I'm gonna be okay. Hopefully. But I won. Like I wanted to go there to win, so I would have money to come to your meet. Like that's what that meet was for. So like I got that big check and that's my travel money for Miami. So it was never like me avoiding competition or getting on a bigger stage or being afraid. Like I'm excited. Like I can't wait to meet some people that I look up to or who I'm friends with, like Haley. Like she and I talk all the time on social media. I'm all like, I'm always, I'll ask her questions or just check in with her. Same with Brittany. I love both those girls. Like I can't wait to meet them in person. Like I'm not afraid of competition. Like I think it's fun, but I always just did what I thought. Now, when it comes to the plates, that's another thing. Like I never even thought, like I actually thought it was interesting, the people that were like, oh, they're pound plates, not kilo plates. And I'm like, well, they still weigh the same. Like
Right.
kilograms don't weigh more than pounds. But I don't get into it with people like in the comments. I mean, does that kind of thing affect a person? Of course it does. Like you just did this really cool thing, and then people say things that kind of take away from it. But I'm coming to your meet because I'm going to get on a big stage at least one time in my life. You know what I mean? And I'm excited about it.
And I think timing is everything, and how things can line up and build into something. I think the timing couldn't be better, like those kind of things can serve as fuel. You already had backing as well, because you're like, you know what? Well, I already held the all-time world record on your precious calibrated pound plates, right? Because they were the Rogue pound calibrateds. So it's like you have backing there. It's accomplishments that no one can take away from you, but also those accomplishments gave some eyes on you, right? So people know they need to watch out for competitions, and those competitions have helped you climb up those ranks to get to the point where you're not flying all the way to Miami as someone who's ranked number 6th, 7th, or 8th, where you're barely being an afterthought. You're someone who's coming in ranked amongst one of the top women in wraps. Anything can happen on any day. And to come out in the top 3 at, one of the biggest meets ever is the time to come. That's the time to travel. Some people, they have the luxury where they might have the finances and the flexibility where they can come to every single Ghost Clash knowing that they are going to be finishing in the bottom half of the entire meet, but for other people, it's like you want to choose and you want to strategize, and timing is everything. So I think the timing couldn't be better. Your recent performances and where your strength is and where you've culminated over your last couple of years of climbing the ranks, you're in the perfect position. And I'm super excited to have you, and super excited to see what you can do.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it too.
Hell yeah.
Just being there for me is I consider that an accomplishment. The invite alone was meant a lot to me. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, Miami's fun. Miami's a party. 11 weeks away. I cannot wait to meet you in person. Is your son coming down with you?
No, unfortunately,
Okay.
he's not gonna. I would like to have brought him, but I'm gonna, for this first one,
You want to be lasered in.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Well, let everyone know where they can find you on social media, follow along leading into the meet, and thanks for hopping on.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Do you mean like I'm on Instagram? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So I'm on on Instagram. I'm just Boone's mom, Boone's_mom. That's the only social media I have, or Facebook. But
I love it. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, Jen. Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the WRPF podcast.
Thank you so much.